a dark night, the wind howled across the endless desert, carrying secrets buried deep beneath the sands. The locals whispered stories of a city that once stood here, magnificent and bustling, now swallowed whole by the desert. They said you could still hear faint echoes of its life if you stood still long enough. But how does a city, an entire civilization, disappear without a trace? The mystery of this lost city haunts travelers and historians alike. Legends say it was a place of incredible wealth and knowledge, where merchants from distant lands traded rare treasures and scholars studied the stars. Then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. Did the sands rise in rage? Or was there something more sinister at play? Today, only fragments of the story remain, buried deep in the desert, waiting to be uncovered. This was no ordinary city. It was a beacon of hope, rising amidst the barren desert like a golden jewel. Its streets were alive with the sounds of bustling markets and laughter. Grand palaces stood tall, their walls shimmering in the sunlight, adorned with carvings that told tales of gods and heroes. The people of this city were innovators. They had mastered the art of harnessing scarce water sources, creating an oasis that defied nature. Their knowledge attracted travelers from distant lands, turning the city into a hub of culture, trade, and wisdom. But even the most thriving cities are not invincible, and beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. At first, the warnings were subtle. The winds grew stronger, carrying fine grains of sand that began to seep into homes and markets. Farmers struggled as the once reliable water sources started to dry up. The signs were there, but life went on as usual. Then came the whispers, stories of unexplained disappearances and strange shadows seen on the desert horizon. The city's leaders dismissed these as rumors, too proud to acknowledge the looming danger. Little did they know, the sands were not just creeping, they were hungry. The first signs of the city's downfall came from the relentless power of nature. One day, a sandstorm of unimaginable force swept through the city, choking its streets with dust and burying entire homes. The once clear skies turned dark, and the people could hardly breathe as the storm raged on for hours. Walls crumbled under the weight of the sand, and entire markets disappeared beneath the growing dunes. Despite their advanced knowledge, the people of the city were no match for nature's wrath. Floods followed the storms, turning the life-giving rivers into raging torrents. Crops were destroyed, and the city's food supplies dwindled to dangerous levels. Survivors described it as if the desert itself had come alive, intent on reclaiming what once belonged to it. Was this nature's way of warning them, or was it a sign of things to come? The city's wise welders had seen signs of trouble long before disaster struck. Stars in the sky seemed out of alignment, and the seasons no longer followed their usual rhythm. Farmers noticed that the soil, once fertile and abundant, was beginning to fail them. They warned the rulers of impending doom, but their voices were drowned out by the noise of prosperity and ambition. In the royal courts, debates raged over how to address these strange occurrences. Some believed it was the wrath of the gods, while others insisted it was simply a natural cycle. The rulers, unwilling to halt their grand plans for expansion, ignored the growing concerns. Little did they know that these small warnings were the first steps toward an irreversible catastrophe. It started slowly, just a trickle of sand creeping closer to the edges of the city. At first, people paid little attention, brushing it aside as an inconvenience. But as the days turned into months, the sand grew bolder, swallowing farmland and creeping into the city's outskirts. Entire neighborhoods were slowly buried, their roofs peeking out like shadows of a forgotten past. Residents tried to fight back, building walls and digging trenches to hold the sands at bay. But with each passing storm, their efforts seemed more futile. The desert, it seemed, had a will of its own, a relentless hunger that would not be satisfied until the city was no more. Was this the work of nature alone, or something far greater? As the sandstorms grew fiercer, so too did the tensions within the city. The once united people, bound by shared prosperity, now turned on one another. Merchants blamed farmers, farmers blamed the rulers, and whispers of dissent began to spread like wildfire. In the royal palace, the leaders argued over how to save their city. Some wanted to abandon the area entirely, searching for greener pastures elsewhere. Others insisted they fight, pouring resources into rebuilding and defense. These internal divisions only weakened the city further, leaving it vulnerable to both natural disasters and human greed. In the midst of the chaos, betrayal reared its head. Trusted officials, once loyal to the city, began conspiring in secret. They saw an opportunity to seize power amid the confusion, working with rival forces outside the city. Valuable resources were stolen, and vital defenses were left unattended as these traitors worked to further their own ambitions. One fateful night, a gate was left open during a sandstorm, allowing an enemy force to enter undetected. By the time the sun rose, several key structures had been destroyed, and the city's morale was shattered. This betrayal proved that the city's greatest threat wasn't just external, it was from within. Trade had been the city's lifeline for centuries, connecting it to distant lands and ensuring its prosperity. But as the desert encroached and chaos spread, the trade routes began to close. Merchants refused to risk their lives, and neighboring cities severed ties, fearing the troubles of one city might spread to their own. The bustling markets, once alive with colors, sounds, and smells, fell silent. Ships no longer arrived, and caravans became rare. The city's economy, built on the exchange of goods, began to crumble. Without trade, the people were left to fend for themselves, a task made nearly impossible by the worsening conditions. The final blow to the city's survival came when the fields, once lush and green, turned to dust. A year of drought left the farmers with nothing to harvest. Wells dried up, and the rivers became trickles. People grew desperate, their once abundant tables now bare. The city's leaders tried to ration what little food remained, but it wasn't enough. Starvation swept through the population, leaving the streets eerily empty. For the first time, even the wealthiest citizens began to feel the weight of the crisis. It became clear to all that the city's end was no longer a distant possibility. It was a looming reality. With no food, no water, and no hope, many residents began to leave. Entire families packed what little they had and set out into the harsh desert, hoping to find refuge elsewhere. The once crowded streets of the city became quiet, with only a few determined souls remaining behind. Those who left faced great hardships, with many perishing in the unforgiving sands. But a few survived, carrying with them fragments of their culture and memories of the city they once called home. These survivors would later become the storytellers, passing down tales of a city that seemed too wondrous to be real. The city's last days were marked by a storm unlike any other. Winds howled, carrying walls of sand that buried entire neighborhoods in minutes. Buildings that had stood for centuries collapsed under the weight of the dunes. Survivors huddled together in the few remaining shelters, listening to the sound of their city being consumed. When the storm finally passed, there was nothing left. The city was gone, swallowed entirely by the sands. Its people, its culture, and its achievements were lost to the desert, leaving behind only an endless expanse of dunes where life had once thrived. As more artifacts were uncovered, historians began to craft theories about the city's fate. Some pointed to environmental collapse, suggesting that overfarming and deforestation had turned the fertile land into a desert. Others argued that external invasions or internal strife had torn the city apart from within. A more controversial theory suggested that the city's technological advancements had been its undoing. Could they have created something so powerful that it led to their destruction? These ideas divided experts, but one truth remained clear. The city's story held lessons that resonated even in modern times. Despite its fall, the city's spirit lived on. The people who fled carried their knowledge, traditions, and resilience with them to new lands. In these far-off places, they built communities inspired by the greatness they had left behind. Their art, architecture, and culture influenced neighboring societies in ways that can still be seen today. The city's legacy wasn't just about its achievements, it was about its ability to inspire, even after its disappearance. It became a symbol of humanity's potential and a reminder of the fragility of even the mightiest civilizations. Modern technology brought new life to the search for the lost city. Satellite imagery revealed strange patterns beneath the sands, while ground-penetrating radar uncovered hidden structures. With every new discovery, the city's story grew richer and more complex. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of advanced water systems, intricate carvings, and tools that hinted at a deep understanding of science and engineering. These finds not only proved the city's existence, but also painted a vivid picture of its greatness. As the story of the city unfolded, it became more than just a historical mystery, it became a warning. The same forces that had destroyed the city, environmental neglect, political greed, and human division, were still present in the modern world. Could today's civilizations suffer the same fate if they failed to learn from the past? This question haunted scholars and leaders alike, sparking debates about sustainability, resilience, and the cost of progress. The city's story wasn't just about the past, it was a mirror reflecting the challenges of the present. Even with all the discoveries, the city's full story remained elusive. There were still parts of its history buried beneath the sands, waiting to be uncovered. Explorers continued their work, driven by the hope that one day they might find a key artifact, a single clue that would solve the mystery once and for all. For now, the city remained both a treasure and a challenge, inspiring curiosity and determination in those who sought to unravel its secrets. As we conclude this journey, one truth stands out. The city's story will never truly end. Its ruins, legends, and influence will continue to spark imagination and discovery for generations to come. It is a reminder of both the heights humanity can reach and the dangers that come with forgetting our limits. The city may be lost to the sands, but its legacy endures. It challenges us to ask the big questions, to seek the truth, and to learn from the past. After all, the greatest stories are not the ones that provide all the answers, but the ones that leave us searching for more.